I've had my PMP certification since 2008, and that was back when I had a corporate job. My company sponsored it, which was really cool. It's actually a fairly difficult certification to get. You have to have a decent amount of experience in project management or a very closely related field. You have to document the whole situation, and you have to take a test, which is fairly difficult. Once you get the certification, it lasts for 3 years, but like many professional certifications, you have to do continuing education. They call it PDUs in the PMI, the Project Management Institute nomenclature. So PDU is a professional development unit. And every 3 years, you have to get recertified and essentially document your PDUs, which can be education-based or giving back to the profession. So like the way that we did the certification and recertification in the past has shifted a little bit, and they've changed the talent triangle, which I'll show you in a second. But essentially, I'm in a spot where I need to do the recertification. Pro tip, the best way to do this is every year, I would say, you should go through and document the education that you're doing. You should document the giving back that you're doing. And I'll go through some of those details, because if you don't do it along the way, you find yourself in the position that I find myself now, where I have a little over a month to recertify. And I have been doing some continuing education and giving back, but I haven't documented it well along the way. So I'm going to go through a couple things. The cool part is the systems that they have are really good because the software is just better. So I can log in, I can see how many PDUs I have already documented. I know how many I need to get, and that's what we're going to get into now. So they do have a great documentation. It's about a 20-page PDF here, and it talks about continuing certification requirements for the various different certifications from PMI. I have a PMP, but they have program management. They have other flavors in here, some agile stuff, some project team members, and so on. But we're going to jump ahead to the things that I needed to look at. So there are kind of two main areas. So we'll look at the education and the giving back requirements. So I have the PMP here, and again, 3-year certification. The total number of PDUs I need is 60, and I have a minimum of 35 PDUs that I need to earn in the 3-year period, and then a maximum of 25 hours or PDUs in the giving back. So we'll go through each of those. They want you to take plenty of education. There's no limit on education. You could do as much as you want. The giving back does have a limit, and there are some subcategories within education, and there are some categories between the giving back as well. So you need to make sure you spread it properly. For the education, they have the PMI talent triangle, all right? They have changed it over the years, so this is one of the updates that they made, and they have a couple different areas, 3 different areas. This is a triangle after all. So essentially, this is different ways you could do work. And I kind of look at it as productivity. And in the past, I think it was around like techniques, and I could look back and see, but it's sort of a rebranding, and it kind of broadens the scope of what each one of these are. So number 1, ways of working. This is kind of productivity. All right. So power skills. So these are interpersonal skills for leadership, communication, mindset, purpose, and empathy. So these are, various different leadership skills overall. And then finally, business acumen. So this is kind of a poor description in my opinion. It says professionals at all levels need to be able to cultivate effective decision-making and understand how their projects align with the big picture of broader organizational strategy and global trends. So overall, I think it's just business ideas. So it could be entrepreneurship. It could be looking at organizational strategy and overall vision for a company or an organization or a team, you can kind of reshape it. But this covers just about anything you could learn related to business. And there are some adjacent things that can apply. So for example, communication, that's a power skill. And that could be like potentially Toastmasters meetings, or if you're leading a Toastmasters meeting, or if you read a book about communicating better. So there are plenty of books about how to do that. Or you could take a course on communication, and there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. The thing is, you need to have at least 8 hours in each of the categories. Out of the 35 minimum PDUs in the education area, I need to have 8 hours each in those, and I can get 11 hours in any of the other triangles. So there is no limit on the number of PDUs that you can get in education, but you have to make sure you take at least 8 hours in each one of those. So as we move on to the giving back to the profession, we see here that you can do a few things, right? So essentially, you can volunteer, you could teach, you could produce content and that sort of thing. And as we scroll down, you can see they describe it as volunteering, creating knowledge, or working as a professional. It's just like doing your job, planning projects, executing on projects, that sort of thing, taking feedback from projects and creating templates, systems, that sort of thing. But you could only do a maximum of 8 on that. And the reason why they make it a maximum is because they don't want you to just like log everything as doing your job. That wouldn't quite embody what they're trying to do. It doesn't capture the spirit. So as we go on, we'll get into the details for the giving back. So let me skip ahead to that section. So we're here at the giving back to the profession. So work as a practitioner. So each day you work in an area related to your domain and you are essentially doing your job. So you could document this and you can claim no more than 8 PDUs for these certifications, and you got to check the fine print here. And for each one of the sections, they tell you the documentation that is required in case of an audit. So in this case, just proof of employment with your job description. So pretty straightforward. And I will be able to claim 8 hours. I've planned courses. I've run projects, ongoing projects. I produce 3 podcasts. I have plenty of things that I can add in here where I am working as a practitioner, as a project manager, planning, executing, and completing projects along the way. Number 2, create content. This is where I can reference a lot of the content that I create. Now, the thing is, it does need to be helpful in the areas that are relevant to project management. And they do say you can create content like authoring books, blogs, or articles, creating webinars or presentations. So this presentation, for example, I'm going over material that can help project managers or other people that have certifications at PMI. This is giving back by creating content for the public at large and practitioners in our space as project managers or product managers or whatever. And like most of these, and I think most professional certifications, 1 hour of time spent creating the content is equal to 1 PDU. So the exchange rate is very straightforward. The documentation for this is just copies or links or course agendas for whatever it is. Next is giving a presentation, very closely related to the other one, but this is more directed for the profession and directed specifically for meetings. And they mentioned like a PMI chapter event or a professional conference within your organization. There's a few examples, and I actually have done a few presentations, but I don't think they're highly relevant from a project management standpoint. That said, if there's a small portion that is relevant, then perhaps I can claim the specific amount of time. So if I did a presentation, but 15 minutes of a full hour was actually covering project management related topics, then I would just claim the 15 minutes, and you can claim a portion of an hour. That is fair. Next is sharing knowledge. So share your domain knowledge to help others grow and learn. And this, it could be a coaching or mentoring situation, and you include notes and that sort of thing. Volunteering, again, pretty straightforward. And you just have to provide information about the volunteer event. Volunteering is pretty straightforward. It can actually be like a PMI committee or something related to project management in your local community, or it could be for nonprofits if you are helping to plan and execute a project. You can document it with the coaching or mentoring arrangement or notes and dates about the specific activities. I'm going to go back to the education portion just to cover that really quickly. For education, pretty straightforward. There's a couple things to keep in mind here. So number one is courses or training. So this could be in person, it could be online. Online CBT, computer-based training is really popular. I'll probably take 10 to 20 hours or so of training, which I'll pay for. There's plenty of companies that will provide this training, and they let you know which portion of the talent triangle it applies for. You can go through authorized partners. You can get courses from PMI, and there's a lot of different ways you can do this. And you could actually get it from third-party providers as well. However, you would need to provide your registration form, certificate of completion, or attendance, and prove you were there. Next is organization meetings. And these are meetings and activities and local events related to the profession. So usually it's like PMI chapters or third parties and that sort of thing. I usually don't do any sort of local things like that. I've looked into it in the past, but it's just not my thing currently. Next is online or digital media. So similar to what we mentioned before, but this is self-paced training and learning conducted online or digital media. And really, I feel like this is equivalent to the courses or training, but I guess the difference here is instructor-led versus self-paced. So I guess what I'm going to do for those 10 to 20 hours is going to be self-paced learning, and this is totally fine. All the same rules apply, and that works well. Here's one that I end up getting a lot of credit with, and that's self-directed reading that is relevant to the certification. So I read a lot, and a lot of them have at least portions that are relevant for productivity, working, leadership, business, and entrepreneurship. It fits in really well. All you have to do is have evidence supporting your learning, including notes and dates of reading. The other cool part is I document when I read a book in Goodreads. It's just a way for me to keep track of it. And I have notes of what I have read. So I can actually go back and see when I read the books. So I'll have probably about 10 to 15 hours of reading, which I've spent a lot more time reading those books, but I want to make sure that I'm actually conservative with the portions that I actually claim. So for example, I read the book Paradox of Choice by Barry Schwartz, and highly relevant for leadership, business acumen, even ways of working. And what I'll be able to do is document. I've noted about 3 hours here, even though I know the book probably took closer to about 10 hours for me to read. So I'll be able to document 3 hours very safely and feel good about, documenting that. And 3 hours is, a good chunk of time. And again, it's highly relevant for various different areas. So I think that's great. And I'll be able to divide it up into different areas and make sure that my notes from reading the book are relevant for the specific areas of the talent triangle. That way, if I do get an audit, which is randomly selected, I would be able to provide the evidence and it'll be easy for me to put together. Finally here, I want to move ahead, and you could carry over these hours. So let me get to that section. Last thing to note, if you earn more hours than required PDUs in your cycle, you may be able to apply a portion of the PDUs to the next cycle. Only PDUs earned in the final year, the final 12 months of the certification cycle, can be applied. As a PMP, I could pass forward 20 hours, which, luckily for me, I actually passed forward 20 hours the last cycle because I did some good work. I worked ahead pretty well. So I was able to pass forward about 20 hours, and it's divided up into the different sections. I can't remember where the different hours are, but I'll be able to use some of those PDUs. And it's a great way to work a little bit ahead. And the sin that I committed this time around was I didn't document things on an annual basis. If I'm always thinking about it, then certification time comes around, and I've already done most of what I need to do, but I just didn't document it along the way. Especially like when I'm reading the books, it's very straightforward for me to just, capture my notes, put them where they're in a safe place so that I can go and have them and say, hey, all right, I read this book over this period. Here are my notes about the book, and then go from there and make it, pretty easy to document this stuff. But it's easy to forget. Now, some of you may be thinking, hey, Doug, you worked for yourself. You've been self-employed for almost a decade now. Why do you need the PMP? And technically, I don't. I don't need the PMP. It is fun to have the PMP after my name, right? So Doug Cunnington, PMP. But it's such a challenge to get the PMP that I kind of want to keep it going. And I'm technically still, practicing project management. I talk about it. I run projects. I start projects. So I'm a practitioner still, and it's straightforward enough for me to go through the process, go through the cycle, and earn the PDUs and document it. I can't remember how much it costs to renew. I think it might be a few $100s or so. It's a chunk of change when you consider the education hours that I'm going to be purchasing from the course platforms, and then to actually pay to keep my certification up. So it's not free by any means, but it is nice to have. And I don't envision that I'll get a W-2 job or interview for a job in the future. But if I do, having the PMP is kind of nice. And I would most certainly work in a field that is not saturated with PMP. So I would actually bring some additional skills to the table. So if you have any questions, let me know. You can just leave a comment on the video. And thanks for checking it out.